for you. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this webinar entitled Better Normal for 2021 and Beyond, Trends and Opportunities in Business and Governance. This activity is organized by the Ateneo de Naga University Center for Local Governance in coordination with the Graduate School, Master in Public Administration and Master in Business Administration cluster. I am Malu Barciliano of the Ateneo de Naga University, and I will be the moderator for this webinar. This activity is streamed live via the Ateneo CLG YouTube channel and the Ateneo CLG FB account. With this, I formally welcome our participants and viewers who are streaming live using the platforms mentioned. Let us now proceed. Friends, our speakers this afternoon will be sharing significant inputs relative to the topic. Specifically, they will be sharing the trends and opportunities in business and governance as we face this better normal, this 2021 and even beyond. Based on the Philippines Digital Economy Report 2020 of the World Bank, the need to digitalize the Philippine economy for a better normal under COVID-19 should be in place. As we all know, COVID-19 pandemic restricted mobility and economic activities around the world, and of course, including us here in the Philippines. With the restrictions and with consideration on the prescribed health measures, which limit face-to-face interactions and activities, the availability of affordable digital technologies has emerged as a key determinant of resilience. The digital technologies allow businesses and the government, including academic institutions, to pursue operations online and or using digital platforms. We now recognize the importance of digitalization for economic and social resilience and the many other opportunities we can generate for a better normal. And these are to be considered by businesses and the government. To formally start off, we shall listen first to the message to be delivered by Father Roberto Ezequiel Rivera of the Society of Jesus, our university president. Ladies and gentlemen, let us all welcome Father Rivera.
So to our Center for Local Governance Director, Dr. Marilu Baseliano, to our distinguished speakers, Sir Willie PRILLES and Sir CARLO Buenaflor, to all our friends tuned in to the various platforms in social media in which this forum is being streamed live. Just marhay na hapon po sa Saindo Gabos and a blessed 2021 to all. Our forum this afternoon will look at the various prospects in business, in governments, and for our whole country this new year 2021. I think none of us need to be told that 2020 was one of the most challenging years any of us have ever experienced because of the pandemic, because of the calamities that came our way, especially here in the Bicol region, and because of all the social, political, and economic upheavals this has caused. However, we are in a new year, and as we start the year, it is always good to seek guiding lights as we begin our work and mission for 2021. I am glad that through this forum sponsored by the Center for Local Governance, we will be able to start this new year looking at the prospects of this year through the optic of what I like to call two O's. The first O is the optic of optimism, which is always very important. We have survived a difficult year, and we now have the chance to truly rise up and recover from all that has happened in 2020. But the second O is very, very important. It is the optic not only of optimism, but the optic of objectivity. We want to get a good and full picture of what lies ahead of us, of what we should realistically confront. And I think all of us are very fortunate this afternoon that our discussion will be led by two eminent and well-respected experts in their fields who are not only true professionals in the respective areas of endeavors, but we are very fortunate and honored to say, are also true collaborators of the Ateneo de Naga University. And this afternoon, we are fortunate to have Sir Willie PRILLES of the Naga City government, the Senate Plating Office, who is also a faculty member in our graduate school. And we are also, of course, very fortunate to have Sir CARLO Buenaflor, a highly successful entrepreneur who is also a very dedicated member of our Board of Trustees and our Finance Committee. And so, dear friends, let us be thankful for this opportunity brought to us by the Center for Local Governance. We hope that through the help of Sir Willie and Sir Carlo, we will be truly able to start the year looking at it through the optic, through the eyes of optimism and objectivity. May we have a fruitful forum this afternoon. So again, thank you to everyone. Diyos mabulos po.
Optimism and objectivity, and that is exactly what we need to imbibe as we jumpstart this year 2021 and as we go through with this better normal. Let us now have the presentation and discussion of our two speakers. We shall start with the first speaker, Mr. CARLO Buenaflor. He is the Chief Executive Officer of Bigg Incorporated, and he operates Bigg's restaurants in the Bicol area. At the same time, he is the Honorary Consul of Spain in the Bicol region. He is also serving as a member of the Board of Trustees of the Ateneo de Naga University, and he has also taught in the MBA program of the Graduate School of the university. Friends, let us all welcome Mr. CARLO Buenaflor. Sir Carlo, please.
Thank you, Doc Malu. Thank you for the warm welcome. And thank you also, Dr. Robert, Father Robert, for the introduction, a very inspiring introduction. Okay, let me just try to share my screen. Okay, are we on? Is my screen on? Okay, thank you very much. So, good afternoon, everyone. Maraming hapon po sa Indogabos. I was just in Bicol not so long ago. I came back yesterday. I hear that the weather is better now. It was raining for one whole week when I was there. So I hear it's a bit warmer these days. Okay, let me proceed with my presentation. So thank you for the opportunity to present trends and opportunities in business. I would try to inject trends that I've researched online, as well as local trends that I've also observed in Bicol and in the Philippines in the past year, and also moving forward where I see trends in retail, trends in business are headed towards, and opportunities that we as Bicolanos can seize or can take advantage of. Okay, this classic phrase or quotation is so apt these days. I think this is a quote that we all live by these days, and it says, "Don't let a good crisis go to waste." And I live by this every day during the pandemic. So we are what the pandemic has done was usher in very, very quickly the age of digitization, right? And we all know this because we are living in an age where e-commerce is very prevalent and very much part of our life. Some in a big way, some in a small way, but you can't deny that it's been a part of our life in the last 10 months since the pandemic started. And 70% of consumers were forced to try new forms of shopping. And the e-commerce increase on the first half of 2020 is equivalent to 10 years of growth of e-commerce. So this has been obviously an unprecedented growth for e-commerce, and something that would have taken us another 5 to 10 years to get to. But this pandemic somehow hacked hack that process, short circuit that process, and we are actually already in the future of e-commerce in a matter of months. Interestingly, despite the fact that we were not allowed to see each other, productivity rose by 10%, right? That's hard to believe given that we don't get to collaborate face to face. We don't get to go to our offices and be with our colleagues 5 days a week. Interestingly, ironically, productivity rose across all industries. And in the US, this is the third quarter of last year, they were able to record a record-breaking application of new businesses. 1.5 million new businesses were recorded in the States versus only half the previous year. So 2020 has seen also a surge of new enterprises, small enterprises, and this is not common during crisis because the two crises that we experienced back in 2001 or 2, and then back again in 2008. Sorry, 1997 and 2007 and 8. There was actually a drop in new businesses being filed, but last year was again unprecedented in the formation of many new businesses across some sectors. Of course, there were sectors that were greatly affected. We know which sectors they are. The hospitality industry was affected, which I'm a very big part of. I'm a big stakeholder there, obviously. But that also gave opportunity for other businesses for us, which I will be mentioning in a while. And obviously, because we were forced to innovate due to the circumstances, there have been leaps and bounds in advances in data, analytics, robotics, artificial intelligence, and 3D printing. And because of that, this is actually could be a disadvantage to us in the East, meaning as opposed to the Western countries of Europe and the United States, because as the West becomes more efficient, not relying too much on human intervention brought about by the pandemic, the cost to produce in the West is actually narrowing in difference compared to production costs in the East. And remote health, this is a big thing also that's happened. Obviously, doctors and nurses cannot visit their patients as they used to. So there was this is staggering, right? But of course, it's understandable also. But there was 130,000% increase in remote health or telehealth. So this is a big trend that we'll be seeing in the future, where doctors and nurses and medical professionals will be conducting their consultations or their meetings with their patients online, and tools are being available to make that possible with the use of apps and other new innovations in the medical practice. But also, we have also seen, and I'll be actually talking more about this in a while, e-commerce. Although there was a proliferation of e-commerce sites, e-commerce brands, everybody getting into e-commerce with their own .com sites on Facebook, on the different social media platforms. What has happened also is that the consumers are less loyal these days because they are inundated with so many options and many choices, right? So they don't stick to one brand. So this is a consequence of the inundation of ang dami-daming mga brands, ang dami-daming mga services and products available being sold online. Now, also, and this is for me the most significant impact of the pandemic, is how people have changed their mindset. Right, there is now a growing awareness towards sustainability in all respects, no? And these are the different trends happening under sustainability. Again, no, across many different sectors and industries. So impact investment actually has grown. And what does impact investment mean? It means that there's a lot of private funds, right, that are being directed into mga businesses that focus on with different businesses with different agendas that help the environment, help the plight of the third world countries, and the plight of the marginalized and plight of the poor. So impact investment is rising as a result of the pandemic. And there is also the as another side to that, no, companies are being more conscious and aware, and these companies are called evolved enterprises. I suppose these are companies that have evolved from being a highly capitalistic nature, right, to being a more conscious enterprise. And also there's a strong regard for saving the planet, no? The former US president, I don't have to name names, no, didn't have a very strong agenda to save the planet, but as a result of the 10 months of pandemic, these are the things that actually happened during the pandemic. China pledged to be zero net carbon emission by 2060, Japan to be carbon neutral by 2050, South Korea to be net zero emission by 2050. And during the campaign of President Joe Biden, he pledged to invest $2 trillion in clean energy related to transportation, power, and building. And there is a focus now, or a shift, to go from mass to micro, right? As opposed to, so there was mass marketing products, that were mass produced, now are produced locally, produced by entrepreneurs, backyard industries, and this has also led to what they call hyper local. Hyper-local is a focus on a community, no? Being hyper-focused means creating products, creating media content, creating services by a local community for the local community, right? So gone are the days where we produce or we consume items that are mass-produced. We can now consume items that are locally produced and locally available. And before, the mantra of companies were think green, diba? Think green, but then that has changed to be green. And a big example of that is a company called H&M. I'm sure many of you have heard of this retail brand. There are outlets in Manila already. And this group is working to achieve its goal that by 2030, all the group's brands will use only recycled or sustainably resourced materials in their collections. So all the cotton that will be used for their clothes by 2030 are all recycled cotton. So and H&M is, I think, among the top 3 apparel brands in the world, up there with Zara and probably Uniqlo. So just imagine the impact this will have on the planet, no, or on the cotton industry. And there is also an initiative to reshore. So this could be a good thing for us or a bad thing for the Philippines, as a lot of the businesses here in Bigg, in Naga, some not a lot in Naga, but some in Naga and quite a bit more in Manila are offshore BPOs. And so because of the pandemic, companies are forced to reshore their outsourced services. And this is aligned with the initiative to be hyper local, to go from mass to micro. And there's also an initiative to be regenerative. Regenerative is a regenerative economy is an economy where it becomes self-sustainable with less reliance on materials, materials and goods from outside its vicinity or locality. Right, everything is produced and circulates within a given confine of a town or a province or a country. Now, the other trends to see, I will be mentioning some that are global in nature and some that I've seen happen in our backyard, in Naga, and also in Manila, right? And of course, again, another quote that I live by these days is that necessity is indeed the mother of invention, by Plato. So these are the trends that we see, and this is something that is obvious. I think I don't have to explain very much about what this trend is. The virtual marketplace. There has been unprecedented, could be an understatement, growth in e-commerce. I'm sure many of you, if not all of you, have ordered from the big two e-commerce sites in the Philippines, namely Shopee and Lazada, and we have all realized how convenient it is to shop in these platforms. In fact, my father, who's 75 years old, who moved to Bula in our farm just before the pandemic. He was residing in Manila, and he moved to our farm just before the pandemic. So he's been staying in the farm for the past 8 months, and he's a prolific Lazada shopper. And he has his items sent all the way to the farm. So if my father, who's 78 years old, who lives in the farm 20 kilometers from Naga, can order from Lazada, let alone the people of Naga City, right? How easier it will be for you to be able to get your e-commerce shopping items. So the virtual marketplace has really transformed the retail landscape, and the brick and mortar retail landscape, namely the shopping malls, the commercial centers, have really thought very hard on how to survive this new shift in consumer behavior, and Bigg's Diner is a big stakeholder in the physical or brick and mortar retail space. So you can just imagine how much of a pivot we had to make during the first few months of the lockdown. And another trend that we see that's happening, and this is kind of a segue from my story about my father, is the grandfluencers, right? There's a growing trend amongst the senior citizens becoming influencers. They're more active now on Facebook. They're more active on different on other social media platforms, and they seem to be listened to by the youth, by a lot of people. And whereas some years ago, maybe the senior citizens were not taken seriously, but not anymore. They're called grandfluencers. And well, of course, a lot of my peers in the hospitality industry, in the travel industry, were affected and are unsure about the future of travel and hospitality, right? But there is a prediction that leisure travel will bounce back. Not only bounce back, but people will travel with a vengeance, right? But the sector of travel that will be affected and will take a while to rebound, to recover, is the business travel sector, right? Just like in 2008 and in the late 90s, after the crisis of those times, they saw that business travel was the last one to recover of all the different subsectors of the travel industry. And I just mentioned revenge traveling. There will also be definitely revenge shopping, and we're starting to see a bit of this. But they expect that later part of 2021, when the vaccines are rolled out, and when people are more comfortable to go out and visit malls, we will see a resurgence in consumer behavior, no, consumer shopping behavior, physical consumer shopping behavior, not just online. So there will be revenge shopping. So let's all be ready for that. Those who are in the retail space. And another trend that we've seen is that the Gen Zs did not sit idly during this time. A lot of Gen Zs, they devoured a lot of online programs, master classes, short courses, some long courses, some learned languages. I was able to brush up on my Spanish. My Spanish improved a great deal over these 10 months. And this was because of online platforms that I found during the pandemic that were very effective. And so the Gen Z creative that they call are people who were able to learn new skills, no, from these master classes. So that has replaced schooling. It's a temporary replacement because nothing can still replace physical education, but this gave them the opportunity to learn a lot of other skills that were made available online. And a new trend that we have seen in retail is what they call appointment retail, where if you'd like to visit a shop, you would have to log in and make an appointment. So when you visit the location, you are expected and you are attended to personally. And some establishments actually won't allow you to enter the retail store without a prior appointment. So appointment retail also, not so much in the Philippines, not so much in Manila, but that's become a trend in other countries. Shopping locker. And I think this is also, I see this as a trend happening in Manila, and it's actually happening already. I have a few friends who are entering this space, but I think also this may be a big thing in the province. They're like PO boxes, no, where for those that live maybe outside of town, that maybe the courier services find hard to reach. There are, or in Manila, where maybe your address is hard to reach, you will see a lot of these shopping lockers where these logistic services will drop off your package from Lazada or Shopee, and then you just pick up your parcel or your orders from that locker, from the said locker. And this is a phenomenon that I have personal experience with. Not that I am a lax lounger, right? I suppose you can say that. But people, we've seen this because I'm in the Havaianas business. I don't know how many of you know that, but we are the sub-distributor for Havaianas in Southern Luzon. So our stores span from Calabarzon, from SM Santa Rosa, all the way to SM Legazpi. And interestingly, over the past 6 months, starting around maybe June, we have seen not a spike, but we've seen our sales almost eclipse our performance the previous year. So our sales for 2020 second half are the same, no? It's the same with 2019, and so that was a curious phenomenon that happened, and we tried to find out why. So what we realized, and from our it was not an observation, no? We asked people about it, and what was happening was that people at home were luxe lounging. So what's luxe lounging? So you buy items that make you feel luxurious, even if you're just sitting down and you're confined in your house and you can't go out of your house. you still spend on affordable luxury, right? That make you feel good. And Havaianas we think is an affordable luxury, where you don't have to break the bank to buy one, but it has the that premium appeal that makes you feel good, I suppose. So that's what Lux lounging is, and it was a trend that happened during 2020, and they think will continue in 2021. Live coaching, and my wife is a big fan of this. These are the fitness programs. Well, one fitness programs is just one of them, right? But a lot of people during the pandemic, I think, got into engaged in online consultations, no, both for fitness and both for skills. And there was a proliferation of life coaches that happened, life coaches and online sports coaches that happened during the pandemic. I don't know if you all recognize this, or if you've had the chance to buy this in SM Naga or order online. But this is a segment that we pivoted to. So what happened was, on the onset of the pandemic, we had to try to find ways to still sell our products, right? Even if our stores were they were operating, but in limited operating hours, and not all were open. So we were forced to freeze our best-selling baby back ribs and make them available online and from the supermarkets, right? And it was a pivot, because it was something that we did not really think we would get into before the pandemic. It was hard for us to reconcile with that initiative, because we were a restaurant business, and we'd like our customers to enjoy their meals hot and prepared by us. But this has been a very, very surprisingly not a big business, but relatively a big business for us. That somehow just accidentally happened. Christmas was phenomenal for us. We aside from Bigg's, my wife has a brand called Kerika, and it's actually a brand. It's a brand of Bicolano delicacies, such as laing, sinantolan, laing longanisa, and several other Bicolano products that we sell here in Manila at a premium price. And we were surprised by the offtake of the product. And Christmas was a very big month for us. And so, if not for the pandemic, we wouldn't have realized the potential for this market segment for frozen meals and for the frozen line, or bottled products, right? So the pandemic made us realize that there are other channels and market segments that we can enjoy. So there's a silver lining. So this is what we call restaurant branded. So you see a lot of restaurants getting into extended lines, brand extensions as they call them. Of course, there has been because the groceries and because of the limitation in travel, if you can't get to the grocery, if you can't go to the supermarket, the groceries come to you in your vicinity, in your locality. There are small pop-ups of grocery shops that happen. I don't know if it happened in Naga, but it happened. We saw a few of that here in Manila. Now, what do you think this is? And this is, as I was researching online about trends, this came up. Okay, it looks obscene, no? But what it is it's a massager. It's a touch massager. So people have been deprived of touch, right? And so this is somebody that's being it simulates being hugged, right? It's a hug massager. So people have been this is a true phenomenon. People have been skin hungry. So people, long for human touch. right? People just touching them and hugging them. So in the US, it's become it's a bit of a small industry. Companies providing ways and means for people to feel hugged and loved with these interesting gadgets and machines. And what we've also seen is what we call millennial move. There are a lot of millennials, interesting, not only from Manila, but also from the provinces, moving even outside the cities in the provinces. So since work from home really means that it doesn't matter where you are, we've seen a lot of people move back to their province, or people who don't have any provinces move to the province and try to do work from there, right? So there's been a lot of displacement of movement for millennials going out of their cities. And I don't know if you all recognize this for those that watch basketball and other sports games played in arenas. So this is what we call a virtual crowd. So gone are the day, well, not gone are the days, but temporarily we're not allowed to congregate and to watch sports in arenas. So they're replaced by screens or virtual crowds. And that has been a big thing in the US because sports is such a big part of their life, and so ways and means were done to be able to continue that. And another trend is subscription sharing. There have been services where one person or a few people can share one account on Netflix, one account on Prime Video, one account on Disney. So subscription sharing has been a thing. Whether you're doing it or not, I don't know. I'm not. And this other phenomenon called dance marketing, for those that that like TikTok, or I don't know, or Snapchat. So dance marketing has been a thing. A lot of brands have engaged in this type of marketing, where they make people dance, and in the process promoting the brand, I suppose. I would like to end my presentation, and I think a lot of the takeaways will happen over the Q&A. I'm not sure if Doc Malu, if there's a portion allowed for Q&A, right? But I hope to be able to impart more of my experience and wisdom during that portion. But I'd like to end this presentation with a concept that's very apt also during the pandemic, for not just for seasoned entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs at my age, but I think it's also very relevant for those starting their career, graduating from college, and not knowing what to do. So ikigai is an entrepreneurial concept, or what I think is the essence of entrepreneur. It's a Japanese concept, right? That was conceived in the island of Okinawa in Japan. And what it is I have a diagram here, right? And if you can see it, if you can see the four circles, right? And on the outer portions of the circles, you will see four statements, right? So I'll read the four statements to you. So at the top, it says, that which you love. So basically, first, you have to find something that you're passionate about, right? And then on the right side, it says that which the world needs. So it has to be something that you love or passionate about, which the world needs, right? And it's something that you feel that makes an impact and the world needs. And at the bottom, it says that which you can be paid for, something that people are willing to pay for. And then on the left side, it says that which you are good at. Okay, so it's a skill. So what the Ikigai concept suggests is that when all these four converges, right, you achieve Ikigai. And by achieving Ikigai, you achieve happiness, right? So you will not feel it will not feel like whatever it is that you choose to do will not feel like work, right? So when all these four converge, you're able to create a condition that will provide you with happiness. So again, um, um, try to determine what it is that you love so much and what you're passionate about and what you think the world needs. If it's something that what you love is what the world needs and that somebody is willing to pay for and that you have the skill for as well. So if you look at this, there may be things here that that are present, but then some could be missing, right? You could be passionate about it. You know that the world needs it, right? And there are people willing to pay for that, but maybe you don't have the skill for it yet. So that's where schools come in. That's where institutions like Ateneo de Naga University, online programs, courses, where you can try to build the skill so that you're able to have all these four components present to be able to achieve the ikigai condition. So I leave you with that last idea on how it is to become happy and hopefully that will lead to success in your entrepreneurial venture. And that's all for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the insightful presentation, Sir Carlo. So Sir Carlo cited the different trends now that we are in this age of digitization. And he also made mention about those activities which are thriving at this new normal, and also the other trends that we have to see. And he ended it with this ikigai concept. Okay, so as entrepreneurs, we have to know those which we love, which we are good at, which we can be paid for, and which the world needs. So basically, these are those which are which would cover our passion, mission, profession, and vocation. So yes, Sir Carlo, we'll have the open forum after the presentation of Sir Willie PRILLES. So at this time, we shall listen to our second speaker. So Mr. PRILLES is our City Planning and Development Coordinator of the Local Government Unit of Naga City. He's also teaching in the MPA program of the Graduate School of the University. Sir Willie, please.
Thank you, Mama Lu. Diyos maray na hapon po sa Indogabos. That was a very interesting presentation by Sir Carlo. In fact, some of the things he mentioned are quite familiar to me because I'm also a voracious user of Prime Video, of Amazon, and Netflix, and the other streaming services of the US. You really have to find ways to access that, but that actually lies within our fingertips. So I did not prepare slides, but I'll try to describe where government is coming in and should go into, especially in the context of this ongoing pandemic. Just to start off, a year ago, right around this time, we saw that it was only China that was grappling with the pandemic. The city government was facilitating several planning sessions at the time. And every now and then, if we check the internet, you will see that numbers in China are rising. But now it's global, and the situations have been reversed. For instance, I just Googled the numbers. For the Philippines today, we already have 506,000 or 500,000 cases of COVID, of which more than 10,000 have died. The US, on the other hand, which had the upper hand at the time COVID was ravaging China, now has 24.5 million cases, unheard of, and 406,000 deaths. It is predicted, but in a month's time, it will reach 500,000. So just imagine, we have 500,000 cases. The United States have 500,000 deaths. So they're worse off right now. China, on the other hand, the numbers are disputed. Of course, we really can't rely on the official numbers. But the official number is that they have only 89,000 cases and 4.6%, 4,600 deaths. which really is quite unbelievable. But you see the wide gulf of the COVID's impact. In a way, knock on wood, we're really better off in spite of the huge numbers that the country has. We only suffered a relatively smaller number of deaths. And this brings into the core the question of what the role of government is. In the face of this pandemic, we saw that business essentially was grounded to a standstill. And in spite of the theories to the contrary, especially by the Republicans in the US, that calls for smaller government, the situation really called for government to step in. We saw governments borrow left and right, especially from multilateral institutions, which is what the national government is doing just to acquire vaccines. But that is the reality. If there is no government, probably the world or the humanity will be all for the worse if nobody will step in. So the role of government to me is that in the middle of this pandemic, it will play an outsized role just to ensure that we go back to a sense of normalcy that we felt before the pandemic hit us, which is an event that for its magnitude only happened every 100 years. So this so-called new normal forced us to promote personal hygiene, wear masks. In the US, unfortunately, it's still an ideological issue. Many Americans, especially those who voted for Trump, do not believe in mask wearing. It's an upside for us. It's an advantage for us that Filipinos kind of follow authority, and it spared us a lot of grief in the number of deaths that we have faced. We're also forced to do social and physical distancing. In fact, current regulations right now actually limit gatherings to only 50% of the capacity, mainly because government has decided that it's not sustainable to really keep the country in some sort of lockdown for so long a time. So yes, as pointed out by Sir Carlo, the one of the really big developments that was accelerated was the shift to digitization. Even government, even us, were forced to really come to grips with non-touch transactions. For instance, we were forced to pay our bills online because there is the possibility that you might contract COVID if you go physically to the bank, or if you fell ill, you get hospitalized. The probability of getting infected is higher in those areas. We now have to deal with companies like Food Panda. It's just fortunate that there are local counterparts like Hungrily and Panda Livery, and it is a testimony to local ingenuity that we have these alternatives to Food Panda. But of course, we have to deal with the reality that these are giant companies, and the challenge really for our locals is to really shape up and come up with their own niches and compete with these giants. Sir Carlo mentioned Lazada, Shopee. There's also Salora, where H&M actually is a mainstay. In fact, over the Christmas season, my family bought a good number of H&M products because they really priced competitively, and it allowed us to really do some of the luxury or lounge shopping that he mentioned. And who will forget GCash or Paymaya as an emerging option? In fact, I don't know if you realize that GCash has this option of really saving, or GSave. It's a partnership with a CIMB bank. It's the only digital bank right now in the Philippines. Actually, it's a Southeast Asian banking conglomerate. But just imagine the impact it brings to the unbanked. You really don't have to present IDs or the likes if you want to open a bank account. If you have GCash, you meet the basic identification requirements. You don't have to physically go into the bank. You can have a savings account. And it creates a huge opportunity for these people. One of the responses developed by the city government to take advantage of this is in line with its role to facilitate or accelerate the recovery of our society, is to sponsor what was known as the Blast Off startup pitching event. I don't know if a good number of you heard about that. That took place in the last two, I think the third week of December. We invited around 14 local companies who are looking for opportunities to expand or get investors and the likes. And the leading companies I mentioned, Hungrily, Pandalivery, were there. So are other companies. In fact, there was another food delivery company that was based as far as General Santos. But it was an opportunity for government to find companies or ideas that they can support. For instance, one proponent there was pitched the idea of RFID services, and our city administrator actually got in touch with him because we can use the technology to manage our central bus terminal better. If you use RFID and use this with local buses and other transportation companies. So all in all, that illustrates one role of government in this whole thing. At the outset of the pandemic, government assumed an outsized role so that we as a country can survive. But as we move forward towards greater recovery, the role of government is to really facilitate on the one hand, and on the other, create opportunities that will allow us to bounce back better. So let me tick off some of the things it did just to allow us to survive over the last few months. It introduced a business stimulus program. This is for some businesses that need financing. We allocated some money for that. We created a short-term employment. These are still continuing programs according to the implementing agencies of the city. So that the idea is to tie things over, so that when we're ready, we'll be ready to bounce back with a vengeance. So this brings me to the final point. What lies ahead for us, or for me specifically? We see 2021 as still a challenging year. Not as challenging as 2020, but still challenging. One indicator is that 2021, where we in the city government are running with a budget lower than what we had in 2020. In fact, we were not able to collect our 2020 projected income because of the pandemic. We feel that it will slowly get better, but we really are not expecting a huge upside in this year. It's still a challenge of allowing us to see through this pandemic. 2022 is promises to be a lot better, mainly because of development in national policies. I don't know if you're familiar with the Mandanas law. Mandana's ruling of the Supreme Court, it now allows local governments to have a bigger share of the national allotments, mainly because previously, since the 1991, when the local government code was passed, customs or the revenues from customs are not counted in the configuration in national income. But starting 2022, it will be counted, and the city government of Naga is looking at an additional 30 to 75 million in share of that national income. It has upsides and downsides. The downside is that you will expect government to devolve more and more health, agriculture, and other national government services. In fact, even infrastructure. So the challenge is to really make optimal use of these additional revenues. The other downside is that you can no longer rely on national agencies to do the wish list that you have in mind. For instance, we will see that the national government will move farther and farther away from big ticket local items and focus on national projects. So national projects meaning road networks that have national or regional implications, and the smaller projects that are more local will be left for local governments like the city of Naga to really look funding for. So it's a mixed bag insofar as we're concerned, but because it will bring in more money, it's a positive for us. The other challenge is to really take advantage of digitization. This pandemic forced us to really revisit ourselves. And now we're working hard to make sure that the city government website, naga.gov.ph, will be positioned not only as an information portal, but as a portal that will promote more e-government services. For instance, allowing us to, allowing Nagueños to pay their taxes online, no longer to go to City Hall to do that. The ideal is to apply for your business license offline, although that will take some more time because it's a service that involves not only local agencies but national agencies, especially the Bureau of Fire. So it means that Bureau of Fire will have to get into the picture. But these are the long-term vision. A portal or even an app that will allow you to take advantage of more and more government services from from your fingertips, so that at the same time it diminishes contact between service provider physically and the clients. How do we accelerate this? Accelerating recovery will be enabled if we can have access to vaccine, because that is one way of attaining herd immunity. Unfortunately, right now, things are not looking well. In fact, in the US, they just found out that they do not have a reserve to speak of. That was being bandied about by Trump, but Biden only finds out that they don't have the vaccine right now. So if US faces the problem, then all the more will developing countries like the Philippines face constraints in accessing, especially the Western produced vaccines like Pfizer, Moderna, and AstraZeneca. One thing working for us is that we're being helped by the British Embassy to access AstraZeneca. It's the more affordable of the vaccines that are there in the market. Best case scenario is that we'll have vaccination starting the third quarter of the year. Mayor Nelson already set aside money to enable the city government to provide vaccination for residents 30 years old and above. So if the supply is there, we have the money, we'll go into vaccination starting the third quarter. Otherwise, we'll have to look at what other vaccine options are going to be there. According to recent news reports, Johnson & Johnson will soon publish the results of its tests. The advantage of that company is that it's only a single dose vaccine. So unlike AstraZeneca and the other competitors, you are required to have 2 doses. But Johnson & Johnson, only 1 dose. So it will, hopefully the price is also competitive. So there, the message of government is that we are here to facilitate the recovery of Naga. We're ready to make sure that we bounce back if vaccines are available and we're ready to spend. But without this, we'll really have to work hard and impose the minimum health standards. Make sure that we protect ourselves and also our neighbors and our fellow citizens as government continues to further reopen the economy. Because it is only by doing that that we ensure our long-term survival. Because at the end of the day, government will not be able to do everything by itself. So thank you very much for this opportunity to share our perspective on how to move forward given the challenging situations we find ourselves in. Maraming hapon po sa inyong lubos.
Thank you for the interesting presentation, Sir Willie. So Sir Willie also made mention how the local government unit of Naga City, including other LGUs, are actually shifting to digitization, as also highlighted by Sir Carlo in his presentation. And he also made mention the preparation of the local government units in terms of the full devolution by 2022, where some functions, services, and facilities will actually be transferred to the local government units. And I think most of the local government units are into this. And as highlighted, LGUs, specifically the local government unit of Naga, will actually facilitate the recovery, especially now that we are preparing for vaccination. So let us now proceed to our open forum. I will start off with the questions forwarded to us. Okay, so allow me to read the question. So the current crisis has made it clear how vulnerable we are to what is happening this time that we have this pandemic, both for the government and the business sector. So in what way should we start coming up with plans to help people be prepared to react and change behaviors in pursuit of this, what we call better normal? So I suppose we can hear from Sir Carlo and Sir Willie. Can we start first with Sir Carlo?
If I understand the question correctly, it's how to prepare ourselves moving forward, even past the pandemic, when we return to some sense of normalcy. Do I get it right, Doc Malu?
Yes, Sir Carlo. So
Yeah.
preparation, since we now refer this as a better normal. So how do we let people be ready in terms of their behaviors, or probably in terms of their perspective, now that we are into this what we call better normal?
Right. And that's a big question for retailers, because especially for traditional retailers, brick and mortar or malls are still the way to expand your business, and that requires a lot of capital. You can just imagine that one big store is about 15 million pesos, 50 to 20 million. So after what happened last year, it makes you think twice, right? Will I expand the same way as I did before? And remember, Jollibee close to 500 stores system-wide as a result of the pandemic. So retailers like them, like Jollibees, like us, like SMs, will now have to think twice about growing. But the Philippines is still a mall-going market, right? I think even with the onset of e-commerce, it's in our culture to still congregate, to still go to the mall. The malls have replaced the city parks, before the venue for congregating and meeting, where of course was in the center of the city, by the church or in the parks. That has been replaced by malls. So it's largely cultural. And although the United States is a very much different market, the behavior there is different. They really are affected by e-commerce. Even before the pandemic, they have seen a lot of retailers, malls close shop as a result of e-commerce. But the question is for businesses, I think we will still grow, but grow cautiously. We will still open our stores, and maybe we will just maybe have to make sure that we have pandemic savings or black swan event savings for the occasions that things that you do not expect to happen. You'll have to have something stored or stashed aside to help you get through these tough times. But we will still move forward to grow and cautiously, I think. I don't know if I answered that question.
So maraming salamat, Sir Carlo. So can we also listen to Sir Willie?
Yes, thank you for the question. Actually, that is a challenging proposition for us, because the pandemic has actually exposed the shortcomings of government. For instance, one of the sectors that actually thrived in this pandemic is the phenomenon of online workers. My daughter, for instance, actually is teaching English in a platform that caters mostly to Chinese residents or who want to learn that language. Unfortunately, government has no way of actually registering them. Or there is even a more important question: do we really intend to register them, or are they better off unregistered? my argument there is that we're better off providing them some sort of registration because it allows them some protection. For instance, they can access Social Security if they have registration, access government protection if things go awry. So government, to me, has to find ways of really registering them. And unfortunately, right now, there is no classification for an online worker. So we really have to update our rules so that we can give recognition to these types of workers, especially if we go into a post-pandemic era. The other consideration there is how do we really leverage the digitization. We have really to move forward and not lose sight of the fact that we really are left behind. Right now, Naga is playing catch up in terms of providing e-government services to our people. So there, those are the challenges that are facing us. The third challenge is because we're facing resource constraints, our projected collection, projected target insofar as local income of the city is concerned might not be hit because we're still in a recovery mode, is to make sure that we get the best bang from the buck. And it starts from the way we plan our activities towards making sure that the plans are actually implemented. There's now an internal sea change within the city. We're trying to revisit the way we do these plans and make sure that we are accountable to our decision makers. You might not see it from the outside, but we are introducing a series of changes in the way we define the outcomes for our people and make sure that these outcomes are the ones really translated into the budget, and make sure that the ones being funded by the budget are the ones really written in the plans. So right now, for instance, I'll give you an example. Right now, we're being required by the Sanggunian to really account, to find out to what extent or what percentage of the plans actually were eventually funded, and out of the line items funded in the budget, how many of them were actually implemented. So these are small things that may not be appealing to you, but these are the things we are grappling with, mainly because we want to optimize the resources that we have right now.
Okay, so maraming salamat, Sir Willie. So I'll proceed with the questions for directed to you, since you shared with us some trends relative to governance. So this is the one raised by Pam Barker. So how is the government dealing with the technological adaptation of its employees? So since you made mention about the shift to digitization, so the question is, how is the government dealing with the technological adaptation of its employees?
Thank you for that question. The city government is still a bureaucracy, and we are bound by rules. But there are certain rules outside of government that still applies to us. For instance, as academicians, we're familiar with the Pareto principle. 80% of the work is performed by 20% of the workforce. That in a way also applies to the city government. And that indirectly shows that we still have to empower the remaining 80% of the workforce so that they can contribute better and maximize their presence in the city government. And that is an opportunity where we can retool them so that they can respond better to this process of digitization. But even before we go into that, there is also the need to inculcate more customer-oriented service within City Hall. From time to time, we see from Facebook, not from time to time, oftentimes there are comments from Facebook that takes city government to task. To me, I see this as an opportunity or as an indicator where we need to fix ourselves better or improve ourselves better. For instance, we should not be too onion skinned to be felt aggrieved by these comments. Actually, they point us in the direction through which we can improve ourselves better. And preparing them for these technological changes will take some time, but we count on the ones who are the trendsetters or those who are more attuned to using technology as the role model, so that we can cascade this learning down through the bureaucracy. So that's one way through which we can prepare for this huge challenge.
Okay, so thank you, Sir Willie, and I suppose the one who raised, Miss Barker, was able to get the points raised by Sir Willie. So since you have the virtual floor, Sir Willie, I'll proceed with the next question directed to you. So this is in line with the procurement of the vaccine. So what is your take on how our leaders are working for the procurement of the vaccine? And as a planning, as a city planning and development coordinator, is the government's intervention and planning enough? This is from Ms. Lynn Grace Vergara.
Yes, there are two aspects to the question. First, about the vaccination. We're now actually negotiating with AstraZeneca. As I said, it's the most affordable among the options, and it's reputable. And there are guaranteed numbers for the Philippines. Unfortunately, if I'm not mistaken, we're only, together with a private sector counterpart, we're only allowed up to 20 million. I don't know. There is no assurance that Naga City will get all of its orders. We're ordering 190, if I'm not mistaken, 180,000 shots, so that we can vaccinate 90,000 residents of the city, as well as local workers. Because in the order, we have included workers of companies in Naga, so that even if they're non-Naga residents, they'll be able to access the vaccine, so that we can accelerate the acquisition of herd immunity. So yes, we're doing our share, but there's no guarantee that we'll have access to that. As I've said, the developments in the US are not favorable right now. They were hoping that they have a reserve, only to find out that they don't have. So they will crowd out the sources. Developing countries will definitely crowd out the sources for these vaccines, and this will come at the expense of countries like the Philippines. So let's keep our fingers crossed that we'll get access to that, and together with activities of the national government to prepare for that. So DOH will be the lead role. We will have that program pretty soon. But we should prepare for the worst case scenario. As I've said, in the scenario that the vaccine does not come, we should still instill personal discipline, the new normal, the minimum health standards, so that we protect ourselves as well as our neighbors. That's the only way we can survive, because it's imperative that government continue to open the economy. That's the only way we can survive, for business to really get back on track.
Okay, so thank you, Sir Willie. So let's take some questions which are focused on business. So this is for Sir Carlo. So in this time of pandemic, how should new businesses behave as a socially responsible organization?
During the pandemic, yeah, that's a good question. As much as possible, we didn't want to let go of any employees. So we were at a crossroads, whether to decrease the manpower, the headcount of the company, to be able to stay afloat, to keep our head above water, right? Or for all the employees to be able to take a cut, including management, including the owners, so that we are able to keep most of our employees. And the latter was a decision. So everybody took a cut, all the way from the top to the bottom. And what that resulted to is making sure that everybody was able to keep their jobs, and that we were able to continue to provide livelihood. And socially responsible, and we continue, and this is something that we've been doing even before the pandemic, is to source locally. We have actually supported Vice President Leni Robredo's initiative called Angat Buhay, and Angat Buhay is it's an initiative to support local farmers. So we've already been doing that, and we continue to do that. in the effort to help our Bicolano kapamilya in the fringes, no, in the countryside. So between those two, I think we are doing our part in making sure that we stay socially responsible, and we look after our kababayan.
Okay, thank you, Sir Carlo. This is still for you. We'll have this last question for in line with business. So needless to say that business are continuously thriving due to the adverse effect of the pandemic. What are your recommendations, probably your proposed recommendations to stabilize the operations of businesses?
The pandemic actually had a very positive effect on a lot of businesses, in the sense that we were able to find ways to cut the fat without cutting the meat. Now there's a way kasi to cut the fat without hitting the meat, no? And I think a lot of companies really have always had that opportunity but never did it, no? And this forced us to do that. So I'm happy to say that Biggs is very lean and very efficient as a result of the pandemic. And in fact, entering 2021 and beyond, I think we will be a much more profitable company than we've ever been because of the efficiency measures that we had to undertake during the lockdown. And I think the businesses should also see this as an opportunity. I think, of course, our revenues were affected in 2020, but if we were able to stay afloat, we all know the saying that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? So definitely that was the case for Biggs, no? What didn't close our business actually made us a more efficient and more profitable business. So that's my answer.
So maraming salamat, Sir Carlo. So inasmuch that we would like to accommodate all your questions and clarifications, the time would not allow us to do so. Thus, we'll just be forwarding all other questions to our speakers and we'll request them to give their responses and we'll send them through your respective email. So before we proceed to the awarding of the certificate of appreciation to our speakers, I'll request them to give a few messages, okay, before we formally end up our webinar this afternoon. We'll start first with Sir Carlo.
I think the opportunities and trends are abound, and the internet or social media is a very, very great equalizer. The retail space or businesses were once owned by the mega businesses, no, the SMs and the Nestle's, the Unilevers, and all that. But right now, because of these platforms such as Lazada, Shopee, and the social media platforms, anybody now can bring their products to the market with relatively low cost. Anybody can be an entrepreneur as long as they know how to wield the power of social media, which is very easy to learn. And if they do that, if you are able to take advantage of these digital platforms, these e-commerce platforms, I think the opportunities are limitless. No, the trends can be we can take advantage of these trends and seize these opportunities.
Sir Carlo, so we'll now have Sir Willie.
Thank
Few
you for the
words, sir.
opportunity. Yes. At this point, I think government will be best served if we take heed to oaths shared at the outset by Father Robert. It should impel government to really be a source of optimism, even in these dark hours. But at the same time, it should be objective. We should be able to make decisions based on evidence, and not just on the politics of the day, but with the interest of society at hand. The challenge really is to recover from this pandemic, and it's only by working together, business on one hand, government on the other, and civil society as the third wheel, for us to really recover and bounce back. And that is what the city government under Mayor Nelson Ligason will try to do.
Okay, so maraming salamat to our two speakers. So can we give them a big round of virtual applause, please? So we will now proceed to the awarding of the Certificate of Appreciation to our speakers. So allow me to read the citation. The Ateneo de Naga University Center for Local Governance, in coordination with the Graduate School Master in Business Administration and Master in Public Administration Cluster, awards the Certificate of Appreciation to CARLO Buenaflor for unselfishly sharing his time, knowledge, and expertise as the resource speaker during the webinar entitled Better Normal for 2021 and Beyond, Trends and Opportunities in Business and Governance, held on January 22, 2021 from 3:30 until 5 in the afternoon. Signed, yours truly. So Sir Carlo, here's your Certificate of Appreciation.
Thank you, Doc Malu. Thank you, Father Robert. Thank you very much.
Okay po. The same Certificate of Appreciation is awarded to Sir Willie PRILLES, so WILFREDO B. PRILLES Jr. Sir Willie, here's your Certificate of Appreciation. Okay, so again, maraming salamat to our two speakers. For our participants, as indicated in our guidelines, only those registered and who will be filling out the online evaluation form will be given an e-certificate of participation. The link for the evaluation form will be posted online after this webinar. It has been an insightful and inspiring afternoon, and the presentation and discussion of our two speakers substantiated the key reforms identified by the World Bank on how the country can harness the potential of the digital economy. And just to share with you, the World Bank mentioned about CHIP framework, where C stands for connect, H stands for harness, I stands for innovate, and P stands for protect. So the framework focuses on 4 key drivers of digitalization. Okay, so connect, which refers to a set of measures to build the digital foundation and enablers, such as digital infrastructure for participation in this what we call digital economy. Harness, which points to needed investments in analog complements, such as skills, regulations, and institutions to leverage the old economy. Innovate, which refers to expanding the new economy services, digital payments, digital entrepreneurship, and e-government. And the last one, which is protect, which focuses on mitigating the risk in this what we call digital economy. Further, let us continue to explore and find more innovative ways to deliver our functions in the context of this what we call better normal. Despite the challenges, we look forward to the opportunities which are generated from this pandemic, moving us to be more innovative, creative, and resourceful. This formally ends our webinar. On behalf of the Ateneo de Naga University Center for Local Governance and the Graduate School, my sincerest thanks to our speakers for sharing significant inputs and for their time this afternoon. Also, thank you to our participants and viewers for joining us in this online activity. So again, Diyos mabalos and good day, everyone.